What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the revolution. Did you miss us?
I missed us.
I was waiting. You missed us? I missed us.
I did.
I'm here all the time, so it's hard to miss when you're already here. But
yeah,
good to connect again.
It is good.
It's like the only adult conversation that I get all week. So,
is it an adult conversation that we're doing on here?
Close enough.
Ostensibly.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm regressing, possibly just because being an adult in Trump's America is incredibly stressful. Midterms are coming up. We obviously just saw some primary races, which everybody, if you don't know who Qasim Rashid is, he's here to join us today to talk about everything from civil rights, the march that he is on right now for voting rights. You can see the vote on the hat, to what went down in Michigan, to our beloved Naperville, where apparently we both have ties.
All three of us have ties, apparently.
We do. Naperville, which I did not know, you just informed me, is a sundown town.
Well, I mean, not anymore, but up until the 70s, which is far later than you would have expected. But it was a sundown town, and I think it's interesting because I grew up in the area. I went to Virginia for law school, and I was in Richmond. And there, you see the Confederate monuments everywhere. You got the auction blocks still up in Fredericksburg. You've got a giant Confederate flag right off of I-95. Down the north-south corridor from DC to Richmond, and so I forgot how desensitized I've become living there for a decade. And when I moved back home, to learn that was shocking. And I found this out because one of my really good friends, Mr. Ernest Krim, he's a Black creator and educator, had to file a lawsuit against the local Buffalo Wild Wings because in 2020, they still had a white only section and a black only section. And he was asked to move.
I'm sorry.
I know.
What?
And when he found out about it, the management was like, yeah, he doesn't like sitting around black people, so we have to move you. And he's like, wait, what? And it's a crazy lawsuit. But yeah, in 2020 America, this was happening. And that's when I found out. I went down the rabbit hole that Naperville was a sundown town until the 1970s.
For people who don't know what a sundown town is, in Glendale, California, where I also lived, was also a sundown town until I think around that time as well. And it basically means it's not on the books, but Black people would need to skedaddle once the sun would go down. It would basically be all just ability to arrest, detain, lynch. Whatever you want to do. Black people just could not be there. And so this wasn't just a Southern thing. This was an everywhere thing. And it was in our lifetime. So everybody who seems to think that, oh, that's behind us, that's it past.
No. I don't know if you knew this or not, but when Dr. King spoke at North Central College here in the 60s, he was forced to enter through the back, couldn't go through the front. And then he wasn't able to stay in a hotel here either. He had to go back to the city in Chicago to stay. Dr. King. I mean, if there's ever an example of someone who they would have been like, okay, we'll make an exception, but nope. It just shows that status and power does not overcome white supremacy, and this is why we need to work on dismantling the systems of it rather than just on the individual aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I walked in the studio, and you guys were talking about some of those things that we're seeing right now. Can you talk about what's happening with the Michigan race and everybody's freak out? I shouldn't say everybody, a certain segment of the population's freak out.
Look, I've known Abdul for nearly a decade, and I've known him to only be focused on one thing. And it's how do we heal people in a meaningful way. He went to medical school, became a doctor because he wanted to provide alleviation to people's suffering. And he learned very quickly something we've all experienced, that the system is actually not just broken, but it's exploitative, and it's designed to exploit and extract as much wealth, not to heal people, not to cure illness, but to extract as much wealth out of people, to the point where we have the worst life expectancy in the developed world. We have the highest maternal mortality for Black women is 300% that of white women. We have the highest infant mortality. We have 500,000 medical bankruptcies a year. 70,000 people a year, according to a Yale study, die due to lack of healthcare. And so his whole mission is, I want to run for office, I want to get elected, so we can provide healthcare access. And I think what What scares the establishment, the Chuck Schumers of the world, the AIPACs of the world, is that this guy ran in a seat that is supposed to only be a conservative purple red seat that Trump won twice, that a progressive can't possibly win in. And, Michael, we were talking offline about what progressive means. I don't even know what it means anymore, but somebody who fights for these working families things shouldn't be able to win. He was outspent 11-1, had the most vile attacks against him and his character, and he still won. And if you compare to 2024, by the way, when Alyssa Slotkin ran against Hill Harper, who ran as the left-wing candidate, she trounced him like 75-25. And so for him to come in and win this against two formidable opponents and do so while being unapologetic, I think that just scares the hell out of the establishment. And look, they should be scared, because I think this is a continuation of what we saw in New York City with Zoran Mamdani and the 8 more candidates that he endorsed, is what we saw with Chris Rabb in Philadelphia, with Melat Kiros out in Denver. We're seeing this happen all around the country, and I think it's just getting started.
Yeah, Qasim, it makes perfect sense to me that he has a medical background, because my interpretation of the majority of his platform, I mean, if you just do the 30,000-foot, viewpoint, is he wants to heal people and make their lives better.
Yeah.
He's looking to, mend this vast conflict that we have right now in this country between right and left.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't even, like we were talking about with progressives and these other labels, I don't even know what those things mean anymore. But he's about putting people first.
Yeah.
And I think that scares corporatist Democrats like Chuck Schumer, because they have become beholden to corporations and to big money, and they no longer are able to thread the needle between serving those interests and also serving their constituents. But we also talked offline about, I talk to a lot of older Americans that identify as Democrats who don't see themselves in alignment with the Chuck Schumers, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Hakeem Jeffries of the party at all. To use the term colloquially, they view themselves as much more progressive. And these are people like my mother's age, in their late 70s, who don't see any common ground anymore with, what people describe as moderate or centrist politics. And that's not to say that they're extremists. They just believe in things like free healthcare and, food stability and, getting rid of homelessness, like things that are basic human needs, have all of a sudden become radical ideas in 2026 America.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a question of what are we prioritizing. I was talking to Maurice Mitchell, who's the executive director of Working Families Party, and he brought up such a thoughtful point that he goes, look, we believe in a big tent Democratic Party, but it shouldn't be so big that the tent includes the billionaires who are exploiting the workers. And that's the problem with Chuck Schumer, that he's like, yeah, I want a big tent party. I want the working class folks, but I also want the executives at Goldman Sachs, and I want Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan Chase, and I want to find a way to appeal to the Elon Musks of the world. It's insane. You can't do it. And to me, and a lot of my writing and content focuses on this. Like I'm extraordinarily critical of Donald Trump and the J.D. Vances and Marco Rubios of the world. I'm extraordinarily critical of like the white supremacist mentality that is just devastating our country right now, that helped ignite the January 6th insurrection and the violence that ensued from there. But I also understand that this is not a war of conservatives versus liberals, progressives, again, whatever label you want. To me, this is not a left versus right battle. This is a situation where we are facing the worst wealth and income inequality in modern American history. Worse now than it was after the Great Depression. And what's perpetuating it are these culture wars that convince us that, hey, your lack of housing isn't because BlackRock bought up 500,000 homes and sat on them so the pricing goes up. It's because of the trans kid in a college sport. Or that your lack of health care isn't because United Health is denying care that they know will work and forcing people to die and into bankruptcy. it's because there's an immigrant who's undocumented and still filing their paperwork.
Right.
It's nonsense, right? And I think for me, my goal is how do we have these conversations with folks who may have voted for Trump, but to understand that they want the same economic things that we do. They want the same, security and safety net that we do. They may approach it a different way, but that doesn't mean that they care any less for their kids than I care about my kids. I think that's why Abdul was so effective, by the way, in winning this seat in Michigan. It's why Zoran was so effective of winning by just a landslide in New York City. Why Mailad Quiros was able to defeat a 30-year incumbent in Colorado while working as a barista and making $15 an hour. I think it's that message of economic populism that you mentioned, Michael, that let's call it that for the sake of discussion. That message works. It resonates because at the end of the day, if you can tell me that I will be able to feed my kids, then you have my trust and we can move forward there.
Speaking of feeding kids, we're now seeing data that people can't afford McDonald's, that they're slumping, that the Subway, I saw reports. And so people are eating out less to be able to afford the necessities. So do you think it's easier now to get this message across to people? Because at this point, who can say that they're winning? Because I used to see a lot of that, even when the tariffs were hitting, people were like, oh, I'm still doing well. And it was like, oh,
yeah. My kids were begging for a pet, so we decided to get chickens, which I don't know if you guys know this, but like baby chickens, I'm new to this whole world. So people watching are probably laughing at me because we've got a good lawn and I'm like, we can get a chicken coop. You can get a decent coop for a couple of $100, which again is not cheap, but when you do the math on it, those baby chickens cost like $2. And after about 3 or 4 months, they all produce about 1 egg per day. So my thing is, if I make the investment now, if you look at what we spend on eggs over the course of a year, I can knock down the egg prices and get my kids a pet. And it's just be a win-win situation.
I'm sorry. Is the new thing everyone's going to be a farmer? Are we just going to all go back to like traditional living where we're growing our own lettuce in the garage with like fluorescent lights? It's going to be like hydroponic lettuce and chickens. What are we doing?
I tried that. I went that route when I was living up in the woods and, tried to like separate myself from society. It went horribly wrong. Chickens within 2 weeks eaten by coyotes.
Oh yeah.
Chickens were decimated. I tried raising bees and realized that honey really does attract bears and had black bears decimate my my beehives.
Okay.
They even stole my my bird feeders and made off with bird feeders. So I was a complete and utter failure at that. But I like it. 2 birds with 1 stone, 2 chickens with 1 stone, so to speak.
It's a win-win.
And free eggs.
Yeah.
So wait, how many chickens do you have?
Well, we ordered 5. They should be arriving any day now. And
Tractor Supply.
What's that?
Tractor Supply.
I have no idea. I tasked my 17-year-old to figuring it out, and he swears that he got the right chickens. Apparently, they're all black chickens as well, which apparently do better in the winter. Yeah. According to chickenologists.
Which is ironic, right? Because I don't do better in the winter.
That does not translate to different species, apparently. But black chickens, it works. So I am, but Michael, to your point, I am worried about coyotes. We don't live in the woods, but we do see coyotes every so often. And so we got a chicken coop that allows a chicken to enter, but not a coyote because of like the size and everything. So I did prep my kids that at some point, one morning, you're going to come out and see feathers everywhere. And it's just best to look away at that point.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to go from here, but I actually like the ingenuity of it all, and maybe that's what is needed right now. Some of these candidates that we're seeing are saying things that shouldn't be new per se or radical, but they're listening and they're hearing people and speaking to people's needs, which is new for the Democratic Party. Or at least new now.
I mean, I'll tell you what. I was fascinated by. Actually, let me rephrase it. I was heartwarmed by the fact that we are finding ways to find common ground, and one of those is foreign policy. Republicans scream about America first. Well, okay, well let's talk about what that actually means. Is it America first to increase our military budget to over $1 trillion to wage yet another never-ending war, or is it America first to take that extra money and invest it in our public schools and to invest it in subsidizing universities, subsidizing housing? I think everybody would agree that that's what America first should mean. It's been commandeered to be this white nationalist slogan, but in reality, if you ask me, the way it should be interpreted is the taxes that we all pay, willingly or unwillingly, should be spent to invest in our infrastructure, to invest in our healthcare, to invest in our public education. I don't know anybody on the right or the left who thinks it's a better use of our taxpayer funds to bomb a school in Iran, killing 165 schoolgirls, or to bomb a church in Gaza right after Pope Francis called them to check in on them to make sure they were okay. I don't know anybody who says that that's a better use of funds. Maybe Lindsey Graham, but he's not available for comment anymore, so I'm not worried about him too much. But like, this is where I think we can find common ground to say, hey, look, we don't have to agree on all the individual aspects of what you think of Muslims or what you think of trans people or what you think of Jews. But we can agree on the humanity of people and just focus on that humanity. And that, to me, is a far more effective way to combat Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and anti-trans rhetoric, because we're leaning into the human dignity of every single person without asterisks or exceptions.
No, I agree. And one of the things that I've noticed, and just in myself and my own personal reaction, but also a lot of people that I talk to, their reaction is it's really woken Americans up to, and I hate to use the term like a silver lining in something like a war where Americans have died, where Iranians have died for no reason, other than Donald Trump's political ambition, ego, whatever, corruption. But people are starting to see in their lawmakers that there's a correlation between money that's being spent by this organization, AIPAC, and donations that are given to them. And even though their constituents are, loudly expressing their displeasure with this war, that they are voting against or going against their wishes. And then it's starting to, wake people up to other aspects of, this corporate money is coming in, this PAC money, these foreign money is pouring into our elections. And we have our elected officials who are going against our own interests, who are voting against our own will, simply because they're receiving these dollars. And you can see a direct correlation between the two. And I think that's been a good net positive for the American people to finally recognize that, getting corporate money out of, getting dark money out of politics is more than just a lofty goal or a slogan. It has real world consequences. Yeah. And I think that it's never been more, readily apparent or obvious to the American people than it is right now.
Completely agree, Michael. And we're seeing the proven models over and over again. In addition to the names we've mentioned, you got Peggy Flanagan running for U.S. Senate in Minnesota on only people funding, and she's leading. Francesca Hong in Wisconsin running for governor, up 30 points in the polls. The pick by Governor Evers is 30 points behind her. Randy Vegas out in California running in a swing district defeated his primary opponent who had corporate money funding her campaign. So we're seeing this happen, and part of why I'm wearing this vote hat is because that's what the next aspect of it has to be. Voting is critical. It's a necessary component, a necessary ingredient to protecting any functioning democratic republic, but it can't be the only thing. And I often, I grew up in the 90s in Chicago, and so Michael Jordan obviously is a namesake here, but people forget that it wasn't just that he could hit the game-winning shot when it mattered; it's that he had practiced it 18 bajillion times, so it came naturally in that moment. And so to me, voting is taking that game-winning shot on election day. But how effective that shot is and how impactful it is what do you do in the meantime? Are you knocking doors? Are you volunteering? Are you phone banking? Are you donating what you can? Are you helping train new candidates so that they're ready for these situations? Are you building a bench? And so much of what the Democratic Party refuses to do is build a bench. And that's frustrating because, you know, I don't know if you guys realize this, but the average Democrat in Congress is older than the average Republican in Congress. Like, they should not be doing a better job of building a bench than we are, especially when the youth want to vote for us. And I think that's really where the disconnect is happening. That's why we're seeing these effective campaigns by the Abdul al-Sayeds and the Mamdanis of the world, the Summer Lees of the world, because they're building a bench, they're building infrastructure. Donovan McKinney is another great example, who primaried Sri Dinator on Tuesday. They're building a bench, and it's making it more sustainable, and people see that.
Well, and speaking of being active year round, I think that's a great time to pivot to talking about 1,000 Miles to Memphis, because you are engaging in community actions, you're connecting with people, you're having conversations. Can you talk about why you thought it would be a good idea to like put boots on the ground right now?
I work with an amazing team of activists and scholars. And we were contemplating what can we do in these midterm elections to be more consequential than these no kings marches, where we go out, you know, rah, rah, no kings, have funny signs about Trump, and we go back home. Like, that's great. It's community. And I will never discourage people from going out. But I've always said that if all you do is go out, hold a sign, and go back home and don't do anything else, then you've actually wasted a lot of time, because that could have been time spent registering people, supporting candidates, supporting orgs, getting money in front of the right people. And so the philosophy behind 1,000 Miles to Memphis is the Calais decision is just the latest example of the Supreme Court gutting voting rights. And we're at a point now where, with some of the restrictions that are being proposed and passed, the SAVE Act, for example, that if these things become law now, we are legitimately looking at a scenario where Black people will have fewer voting rights in 2026 than they had in 1956. And that's fundamentally a problem. And so what we thought is, hey, our team of content creators and activists and scholars, we have more than 30 million social media followers across our platforms. What if we marched through the South to elevate the organizations on the ground, give them our megaphone, and let them share the work that they've been doing? And so we've worked already with Stand Up Nashville, Equity Alliance in Tennessee, NAACP, several immigrant rights organizations, the AIPAC Museum in Atlanta, and the list is I can't list them all, it's like 25 different orgs, that we are literally marching from Nashville to Atlanta, to Jackson, to Birmingham, all the way back up to Memphis. It'll be just over 1,000 miles. And the idea is go on the ground, march in the footsteps of the civil rights leaders who did the work, elevate the organizations on the ground who've already been doing the work, and show the world that, hey, these are the people who are the tip of the spear. A lot of them are Black-led organizations. They are taking the brunt of this work, and they're not getting the flowers that they are owed. So let us elevate them and then raise money. We're already, I can already say with complete confidence that we're going to be able to raise at least $50,000 for these local organizations. My personal goal is to get above $100,000, because like, you got to put your money where your mouth is. It can't just be a rah rah, I got this many clicks and likes. Like, show me the money, to quote Jerry Maguire. And so that's the vision. We're also trying to get as many people registered to vote as possible. And if you go to 1000milesofmemphis.com, you can do one of three things. You can register to vote and register everyone you know to vote. You can sign up to join us for a leg of the march. It's great. We've got food. We've got an RV. It's a lot of fun. Or you can donate to Just Win Humanity, our nonprofit that is sponsoring all this. And these are funds that will go ultimately to the organizations on the ground as well.
I think that's so fantastic and so necessary, because I had the opportunity to talk with some of the organizations that you are on the ground with. I think it was Equity Alliance, and they have a playbook for fighting back against the fascism, and they have a winning fight against flock cameras, for example. I believe it is in Tennessee, and that's one of the issues that is bringing people together. No one likes these flock cameras. And so by elevating those voices, hopefully people in other communities can say, hey, those people in the South, they're not our enemy. They're not seeking something. We all want to get rid of this ongoing surveillance. It makes me very afraid to step foot back in America, because I feel like a camera is just going to be right in my face. What other issues are you seeing that are bringing people together?
I mean, I think that the single biggest issue that I keep coming back to is just poverty, wealth, and economic inequality. People are sick and tired of being sick and tired. People are tired of being, poor. I remember I was working in Virginia with a homeless shelter, and led by a Black woman, of course, because Black women are the ones who lead with empathy on these things more than anyone else. And she said something to me that kind of shook me. She said that 85% of the people who are in this homeless shelter have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. And that surprised me, because in my arrogance, I thought, well, once you're educated, you don't have to worry about these things anymore. And she said that we live in a country where 99% of us are two simultaneous disasters away from being homeless. You lose your job and your house burns down. You get cancer and your insurance lapses. You get a divorce and your partner leaves you with all the debt and takes off on their own. These are all very common things that happen. And so on this march, what we're finding is that economic injustice and poverty is a huge issue. So we are actively looking for the food banks as well to have more community organizing to ensure just people have access to basic things like food. And I think, and we're seeing the success of this, right? I'll go back to Zoran Mamdani for a second. He was chastised for saying, I'm not going to hire 5,000 more cops for New York City. And people said, well, crime's going to skyrocket, murder's going to skyrocket, burglary's going to skyrocket. New York City is enjoying the lowest crime rate in history right now, because he took that money and he invested in public social services and public safety, in community organizing, in libraries, in opening up parks, in fully funding schools and hiring more teachers. And I think that's the driving message that we can use, that we're seeing on the ground as we march through these cities and towns, that people really just want to have economic security, and they're being driven apart by culture wars and by racism because it's a good wedge. But when it comes down to the core of it, I found that if we can guarantee people have the confidence that they can feed their kids and put a roof over their head, it solves a lot of problems.
As a cop who spent 20 years fighting crime, how it is that politicians, I get it, because it's not politically convenient to certain politicians and certain political groups, but 95% of the quote unquote criminals that I interacted with, their crimes were economically motivated. And I worked narcotics for my entire career, and the vast majority of individuals that were engaging in criminal conduct did so because they were trying to feed their families, feed their children, or feed themselves. Yeah,
very painful to see. And
the fact that it hasn't shot up in New York, despite there being economic pressures everywhere, seems like it speaks to the fact that people in New York have hope, on top of the fact that there are now perhaps more services available and more compassion in general in the city. It's that hope factor that says, hey, maybe there's a way. There's something that's going to give me a helping hand to get out of this situation, and I don't have to turn to crime.
That's right. And we're seeing these models elsewhere. Michael, I don't know if you saw the model out of Denver, where they, instead of deploying law enforcement on a 911 call for mental health or substance abuse, they deployed medical personnel to pick them up and get them treatment. And in the pilot alone, there were nearly 800 deployments. Not a single person was arrested. Not a single act of violence. No person sent was harmed. The people in need of care weren't harmed, and 800 people got the treatment that they needed. And now they've deployed that as a more standard strategy, because you've seen the data that, Time did a study on this, where they studied 13 million 911 calls and found that 94% of them were for nonviolent issues that you don't need a police officer to handle. And so when we talk about what defund the police means, it doesn't mean cut your paycheck. It means let's have police officers allocated to actual acts of violence that they're trained for and they can provide security and protection for. But the other 94%, you're not a narcotics, substance abuse expert. You're not a mental health expert. You're not a suicide prevention expert. You're not a domestic violence expert. There are people who are trained for that. So let's fund those individuals who are experts in those spaces and have law enforcement go where they're experts in those spaces. And what that means is overall broader public safety. So this is one of the things that pisses me off about corporate Democrats like Schumer and folks on the right, because Democrats like Schumer think that they can win over Republicans by just like being more Republican than Republicans are. And go ahead.
No, I mean, it also pisses me off about the institution of policing and its reluctance to embrace new ideas and new plans like that. As somebody who had, throughout the course of my career, responded to calls like that, no amount of training that the academy or that any of these like reoccurring training courses that we participate in could prepare you like a medical doctor or like a nurse for these types of situations, who literally go to school, receive degrees, and continued ongoing training to deal with those types of situations. And law enforcement should embrace it. Individual officers should embrace it, because it makes us safer. These are dangerous situations that we're not prepared to deal with. Why wouldn't we embrace a solution that is so common sense?
I think part of it is that it gets buried, right? Like, we don't hear these success stories about these pilots that are going well and reducing over. We don't hear about it. It gets buried by the algorithm, which is something that we were talking about before we went live. And so the scare tactics and the propaganda that they're using to put out there to say like, oh, we're gonna have a bunch of mini mom Donnies, and it's like, oh, okay. And so, Qasim, I know you've got a run, but I would love to hear about how do people find the good information? How do people keep the algorithm from sucking them into this space where they don't get to see these success stories? Because if the people ask for it repeatedly over and over and over again and see that it works, maybe, just maybe, some of these politicians will listen.
Maya, such a beautiful question. There's a couple of things happening in the media landscape right now. One of them is billionaires are buying out media outlets, right? Mm-hmm. Jeff Bezos bought Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, New York Post owned by a billionaire, LA Times owned by a billionaire, the entire Meta infrastructure is owned by a billionaire, Twitter owned by a billionaire, and and then Larry Ellison is buying out TikTok and everything. And so there's this mass consolidation of media under billionaires, and basically all of them are right wing. State media for Trump at this point. Two, people are sick of it. A Gallup poll showed that only 26% of Americans trust national media. They don't trust CBS anymore. They don't trust CNN anymore. They don't trust MSNBC anymore, because they see them as, one, complicit in the rise of Trump, but also more focused on clickbait and not sharing the actual meaningful solutions like you're talking about, Maya. Like, why wouldn't people want to know about a successful deployment of their tax dollars that actually made the community safer? And it's not because that doesn't get clicks. That doesn't, the old saying is that if it bleeds, it leads, and if it doesn't bleed, then it doesn't lead. And so the solution to me is this new wave of independent media, voices like yourselves. I was just talking with Don Lemon earlier on, Joyanne Reed, we're Jim Acosta. We're seeing this rise of independent media where people are building their platforms not because they have billionaire backing, not because they were born with a silver spoon in their mouth, but because they've built authenticity and trust with the followers that follow them, right? That's kind of the power to me of what the social media enterprise builds out. My platform lets address this. We have a national platform, but we're also hiring state writers. I've hired 4 state directors now for Illinois, Texas, Georgia, and Virginia. And I'm choosing states very strategically. Either they're the most populous state or they are a swing state, so we can have meaningful impact. And our promise is to be fact-based and unassailable. And if people think I'm not those things, they can just unsubscribe and not fund us and not give us a subscription, right? And so I'm financially incentivized to be accurate and to be accountable and to provide this information that nobody else is. Otherwise, I don't eat. And I think that's where we are different than someone like a CBS who can spew just trash after trash after trash, but it's okay because they've got a billionaire who's going to keep funding them. With Meta, they can just spew right-wing stuff into the algorithm, but it's okay because they've got a billionaire who's funding them. I think people understand that personalities like us only exist, only succeed if we're honest and credible, and that's where we build the trust to ask them for the contribution. But it's not one of those things where we're shoving food down their throat when they don't want it because it's disinformation. We are accountable to them. And we're accountable to ourselves. So I think that's the path forward. I think in 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a very different landscape. And it's exciting to be able to build it with leaders like both of you as well.
That's a silver lining. I love that. That's such a good positive way to end this, in this moment. And I think you're so right about the authenticity and trust aspect, because not only is that what we need from our media, but we also need that from each other. Like, that's why we're talking about connecting with people in our community and talking to our neighbors again. Everything that is required to say that person over there isn't out to harm me. That person actually wants to help me, connect with me. That person is an ally, not somebody who's going to take all my resources and run. And so thank you so much for the work you're doing in this space, in the digital space, but also taking it offline. It's incredible. I don't know how you have the energy to do it. They must be putting something in the water in Naperville.
I have an amazing wife who puts up with a lot. And so she does all the work. I take all the credit. That's just the way it is right now.
She will be taking care of the chickens. Can't wait to hear about the chicken journey.
I'll come back when they're older. We'll make it happen. But I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate the work that you guys do as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Qasim. So, Mike, we got to just talk about your forest story, your Henry David Thoreau Walden in the woods lifestyle. Your what? You were living in the woods and raising chickens? That we're going to start there with our catch up. I need to know more.
Like shortly after, I was probably maybe a year after January 6th. Like, when I left the police department, I was like, fuck it, I'm out of here. I don't want anything to do with other human beings for like a really long time. Hopefully it was going to be for the rest of my life. But I ended up renting a house in Haymarket, Virginia, on top of Bull Run Mountain. And it was like in the middle of nowhere. My driveway was like 350 yards long. The property abutted like a state wildlife preserve. So there was like 1,900 acres was my backyard. I was out there.
Raising bees. Because a lot of people talk about like wanting to fuck off into the forest. I talk about that all the time. So many people right now have reached the point with society where they're like, you know what? This isn't working for me. Capitalism isn't working for me. I'm probably going to get laid off soon anyway. Why don't I just head off to the woods? You actually did that, but then you came back. And I think there is a lesson in that, like a teachable moment for people. What did you learn while you were there? Did you work on your book while you were there? I want to know how did it change you as a man to be
if it wasn't for my book, I wouldn't have been able to rent a house at all. I'd still be living at home with my mom. But this was post book. I had done, I'd spent time interacting with politicians, too much time, I think, which is, one of the reasons why I'm so reluctant to get directly involved in political campaigns. I just don't like politicians. Even when they espouse the, ideas and seem to be like-minded individuals. I just don't want anything to do with that world directly. And so I just wanted to, fuck off. And I did. It was also like, I had just left the career of policing, spent 20 years there. All of my friends and colleagues turned their backs on me. And so it was like, I isolated myself, but I was also like isolated from, my whole life changed. And so it was a good time for reflection, but it was also, I think, really mentally unhealthy at some point. And so it was, I had to get back to society,
people,
which has also been a mixed mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag, but I think it's so important though to reflect on those two polar opposites, right? Like middle of nowhere, which a lot of times a lot of us are feeling like, oh, I just want to be a hermit, but that's not how the world works. We do need each other. We are social creatures, and I think a lot of the reason why we're in the mess that we're in is because we've been made to be so isolated because of the way capitalism has been done in our in America, where it's so extractive and it's so competitive that we are just trained to see each other as the enemy. Like, how do I beat out that guy? Like, just even the doing better than the Joneses. Like, just even that right there. It's like we have not been taught to collaborate with each other, and with, which is wild to me, because anything that's good happens because of collaboration.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. Like, we're social creatures, and I definitely, I mean, one of the problems I think was that I became way too comfortable with being by myself, which, you know, I probably could have gone the rest of my life without ever talking to another human being. Now, whether or not it would have been a happy life is a whole other conversation. But yeah, I was pretty checked out. And I mean, it's good to be back, but is it good to be back?
I mean, it's always a mixed bag, but I would love to know, people in the comments, what are you thinking? Are you connecting with your neighbors? Are you talking to strangers? Here I saw a video about Portugal, and he was talking about how even in Lisbon, people don't talk to their neighbors. They don't, like, if you live in a building, and I talk to all my neighbors and they think I'm a weirdo for sure. Like, I come up with a reason to make conversation.
I moved into an apartment. I introduced myself to people, and they were like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Like, you know, and then it's like, okay. All right.
But I want to feel like what it is so weird to me to be on the elevator with someone. We're in like this close proximity, and to not say something, have a conversation, know that person's name. And I, like, even when I lived in Chicago and I would be on the subway, and in the morning, the rush hour, it was so packed that you would literally be body to body with a stranger. And I remember at the time, because I was very young at the time, I was like in my 20s, I go, how weird is this? This guy's like breathing down my neck, just trying to, and this was like before smartphones. Like, so nobody had their face buried in a smartphone. Like, maybe it was like in a book or something, but we're all just there in silence, riding into the loop. And just we could have been having conversations with each other, connecting. And I remember thinking in my head, I could just hear the song, we don't need no education. And I was like, all you are is just, and then Welcome to the Machine. Like, those two songs just would play in my head. And I was like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this corporate America train ride into the loop.
Yeah. No, I always talk to people. I think it's just my nature, but yeah, it's, the reactions are I find, like, more often than not, people are like startled. I don't know if it's because I have like 85% of my body is covered in tattoos. Like, that could be a turn off. Like,
maybe you should have a sign that's I come in peace, like just a little I come in peace sign. Like, I don't know. I just really do think that we're never going to get out of where we're at right now if people don't start getting comfortable. And I'm an introvert. Like, I'm a freaking introvert, but like, right. I know I feel better. Like, my soul feels better if I've connected with another human being during the day.
I agree with you. I just think there's too much, too many things like stacked against us. I mean, we just, experienced a pandemic, which, I don't know. I think it's going to be decades before we recognize like what the real impact or ramifications of that were on our psyches. But, you also have like the influence of all this technology. I mean, how many times have you gone out to like a bar and everybody is like staring at their fucking phone? Like, I go out there and there's like literally like a group that has come there together. These are people that know each other, that came to this place to spend time theoretically as a group, and they're all on their fucking phones. And it just, I mean, I know there's places like we've talked about this before, that I think you were surprised because maybe it wasn't your experience, but like when I've gone to Europe, it's always been incredibly sociable. And I end up like talking to people, and then I don't know if it's just like they're not as fixated on technology as Americans are. I don't know enough about, I guess, European living to know, but that's been my experience pretty much across the board, no matter where I've gone.
Well, I was going to say, so the talking to strangers, not so much, right? That hasn't been my experience that people do that. But I can tell you this much, in a restaurant here, I do not see people on their phones. I don't even see kids on their phones that much. It's so rare to see a phone out at a restaurant here, especially like social time around 7 p.m., 8 p.m., that I'm embarrassed to even have my phone out on the table. Like if I need to look at my phone because I just need to check like a message or work thing, since I'm on like a different time zone from everybody else, I like casually do it like under the table, because I don't want people to look at me and be like, that American only connected in their phone, not living, not experiencing life. No, people are like laughing and they're having a good time and they're like still connecting with each other. Like the social aspect of like sitting and having a coffee over the course of like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, as opposed to like getting a coffee to go and running. Like they don't have thermoses here where they walk around with their coffee. I look crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I think with Europeans have over Americans and probably everywhere else in the goddamn world, because I mean, Americans so like, call it whatever you want, capitalism, competitive, whatever, keeping up with the Joneses. But it's like everyone, I mean, I did it for fucking 20 years, like worked my ass off, as a police officer, made very little money, had a horrible like work-life balance, work-family balance. But was that was what was instilled in me as a kid, was that, if you work your ass off, you'll be successful. And I worked my ass off and was always fucking broke. And that just begot like working more and,
and I think that's pretty common, I think, which is why so many of these candidates who are speaking to the economic strain that so many people are feeling despite working full time. And many people who are homeless also work full time. And so these are rough times, but the midterms are coming. And I do believe that people are now realizing who the actual enemy is. And it's not just Republicans with their culture wars, the corporations that are just bleeding people dry and not leaving enough to even survive a little bit.
And that, that brings up today I actually read the our run of show, which so, one, because
what a stunning admission from Michael that he does not look at the run of show before the show.
It was really fucking short. And so one of the questions I noticed was the race in Michigan. Our esteemed producer Sam wrote that it was very close. Why was it close? I don't know if that was a question for our guest or just something for us to talk about, but I have found in talking to a lot of people is that it's not that they don't support these candidates. And again, I'm just going to use this term because it's what people use, progressive candidates who have progressive ideas or populist ideas. There's like two battles being fought right now simultaneously. One of them is, we want candidates that actually represent our values and that also care about us and not corporations or foreign fucking governments. So we want to support these candidates, but we also want to fucking win the election. And I see a lot of people who are like, we can't have it both ways. We've got to support whoever we think is going to win versus throwing all of our support behind the candidates that actually are going to go out there and fight on our behalf. And I was one of those people a few years ago, maybe even a year ago. I was like, we need to, play it safe, I'm not a Democrat, but, I'm voting for fucking Democrats because they're not Republicans. And right now, Republicans are trying to destroy our democracy. And so I think that people need to stop being afraid to support these candidates that they truly believe in and throw their weight behind them. And there's ways to do it. I mean, we've talked about it a million times on the show. Stop giving your money to fucking the DNC. Give your money to these individual candidates in these individual races. And, organizations like, Qasim's organization that's actually supporting the work that needs to be done to win these elections. And so I just want people to recognize that winning is important, but it's also the quality of the candidate that's going to make the difference, because we've already seen now with several races where Democrats won. I'm just going to bring up fucking Abigail Spanberger in Virginia, where we have been so disappointed. And I'm not convinced that she is an accountability candidate for governor. She has not put forth any effort to hold J6ers who live in the state accountable, despite the fact that they were pardoned. And there are mechanisms that can be done. I mean, we saw it done in Illinois, where
in California as well.
Governor Pritzker in California, where they prevented them from holding office, where they've prevented them from, not just working jobs that are, where they collect a paycheck from the state government, but working for a contractor that collects a paycheck from the state government. And so those are the efforts that need to be taken by candidates at that level. And we need members of Congress and senators that are going to hold this administration accountable. And so support the candidates that you firmly believe in.
Well, yeah, I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. And so we've seen Pritzker do it. We saw Newsom do it. And that phenomena of playing to win as opposed to playing to not lose. Is that how you say it? You play to win. And there's the slight difference. And so one thing I love is that people are raising the bar for what they want from a candidate. And they're saying, hey, no, actually, I want you to stand for something, and I want you to stand for these set of things, and then fighting like hell to get them over the line. And that's what's been cool to watch with the Working People's Party and, everything that's going on with Mamdani. And then the establishment does fall in line. The DNC loves to post about Mamdani now, because Mamdani is having so many victories left after right in the city, and they're posting about him like they were supporting him just rambunctiously and they were not, so
we talked about it a little, like Mamdani. I said, Democrats can't claim that victory,
but they're trying.
Democratic Party, he won in spite of the Democratic Party, in spite of the Democratic Party. The same thing in Michigan, in spite of the Democratic Party. And people recognize that too. They see, the Chuck Schumers of the world like slithering out of their fucking hole to celebrate this. And it's like, no, dude, no.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. But what I do love are the Democrats who've come out and said, we're going to throw our support behind him now that he is the nominee. Like Mallory McMorrow, who had dropped out, came right out and said, I think she even gave him her endorsement and said we need to focus on winning, which is very different than what an AIPAC is doing, which is they came out and were like, we must defeat him. It's like, what? What? That ain't it.
Speaking of AIPAC, did you watch any of the Jon Stewart interview with John Fetterman?
Oh, I didn't see the whole thing. I saw clips. Also just because
running communications for the esteemed Senator John Fetterman, you should be fired. Why would you allow that interview to take place unless he's taken charge of his own? He's at the wheel of his own ship, clearly.
It's like the earth is flat and he's headed right to the horizon and just going right over it. I mean, what was interesting is because you rarely see Jon Stewart get like sort of like befuddled, like amused by it. It's just like, but you see, like, you know, you should support the people of your country if you're like, that is your job to represent.
I didn't know we had a fucking senator from Israel.
We do now. We do now.
And then my favorite question of the whole time, or the whole interview, was, do you think you would win an election in your state if you? And she's like, of course.
So
Are you fucking insane?
Okay, so the man had a stroke. We know this, and so it's clearly affected his cognitive abilities to the point that he is living in Delulu land.
And he became. I love the you know, he had a stroke and now he's a Republican.
That tells you everything you need to know, people, about what it takes to be a Republican. I think that's a great place. Just vegetables. They're growing vegetables in the garden. Where is Mitch McConnell, though? For real. Like, for real. Like, are they ever going to trot him out again? Ever? Or is he just gone? Like, that's the true crime story we need right now. That's the game show, the where is Mitch?
Yeah, get Nancy. Was it Nancy Grace on the case?
Get Nancy Grace on the case.
Yeah. You need to park your ass at GW Hospital and get to the bottom of this.
I'm ready to fly in with all the surveillance cameras they have everywhere. Surely somebody should have footage, because he's supposed to be in rehab by now. You're telling me of all the, like, I'm sorry, there's nursing jobs are kind of easy to get, I think, because they're in such high demand. You're telling me there's not a nurse who's willing to leak? Like, did they just surround him with pro GOP nurses? Like, what? Some of the internet detectives noticed that his wife was wearing a blouse that was out of season, like that it was from like Chico's like 2018 or something. And they were like, she would never wear a blouse that was like out of season. So that picture must be from 2 or 3 years ago. And so
I'm not going to go that far, but I'll say this, like, who the fuck is fully dressed in like a button-down shirt tucked in and slacks laying in their fucking hospital bed while they're supposed to be undergoing, you know,
rehab? You should be in sweats at least if you're in rehab.
Yeah,
athleisure. He should have been in that suit that they kidnapped. What's his name in Maduro? He should have at least been in a Nike Tech tracksuit. Right. That's a great opportunity for one of those right-wing athleisure companies to sponsor Mitch McConnell.
And then, you know, like, I don't know. I just, Andy Bashir, man, what are you doing?
I mean, I feel like his hands are tied. What are we at?
54 days, 54. I mean, are they like, I don't know, just say the guy, declare him dead, and declare it and let them prove it.
Figure it out. Yeah. I mean, I'm curious, because he should be having at least town halls, and there should be some sort of referendum or something with the people of, you know, Kentucky to find out, hey, what would you like? What would you like me to do? Something, because they deserve representation. They should want representation. But he brought up a good point, which means, you know, he's not here to vote. He's not here to, I mean, we still have nominations that are just sitting there that he can't vote on because he's, I don't even know. I can't. It's just crazy. It's crazy. We're almost to the midterms. I believe in the midterms. I believe in the power of the midterms. As long as people vote.
I don't know. What's the, is it Kelshi? What does Kelshi say?
Oh, I don't know. I'm the poly market, the prediction markets, all that. I'm so sick of that. I'm sick of that shit. I'm like, stop. Like, what much people like does everything have to be gamified? They're like doing everything they can to keep us from like screaming for our rights. They're like, how about we gamify this? It's like, stop it. Just stop it. No more gamifying anything. I'm done. My God. All right, y'all. I think that's, we covered a whole heck of a lot today. The most important thing being community, connecting, talking to strangers, voting. Yes. Not necessarily in that order, but all of those things. And chickens. can't be affected by egg prices if you have your own chickens.
Chickens attract coyotes. Just saying.
And you could also eat coyote. I don't know. I don't know if they're protected species. I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't know enough about coyotes to speak on the coyote. All right. Thank you guys. We will be back next week. It's already mid-August. Jesus Christ. We're doing it.
We'll make it.
We'll make it.